Thank you for joining us today for our trend presentation. My name is Carrie Dillon. I'm the Managing Director of the International Textile Alliance, and we are the organization that produces interwoven. So again, thank you all for being at the show and also for being here for the presentation this morning. I would like to introduce our partner, Kristen Mungian. She's the Director of Home and Lifestyle for Fashion Snoops, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
All right.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks, Carrie. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Kristen Mungian. I'm the Director of Home and Lifestyle at FS. And today we're going to discuss all of the key shifts that are impacting the home market and specifically the textile industry for fall/winter 25-26. So let's jump into it. But before I dive into the themes, I want to quickly talk to you just a little bit about who we are and what we do at FS. We are a global creative agency with over 22 years of experience in trend intelligence. We service brands, retailers, and manufacturers in a broad range of consumer-facing industries. So if you're interested in seeing our platform, let me know after the presentation, or you can just shoot us an email at sales@fashionsnoops.com. All right, so now let's dive into the 4 themes. We'll be walking through delight, repose, merit, and cultivate today, all of which are on display at our trend gallery around the corner. So I highly recommend you stop by after this presentation. But for now, let's walk through these shifts as we connect the dots between cultural influences and product innovation. Our first shift today is called Delight, and as you could tell by the name, this shift is truly an ode to joy for the upcoming season. So come one, come all to this wonderland of creative experimentation. Imagine a world where electric charge chroma, bold forms, and decadent textures come together, offering an exhilarating escape from the static noise of our digital lives. This trend is all about reconnecting with the present moment, inviting sensory stimulation that pulls us back into a space where opportunity feels endless and play definitely takes priority. Here we're celebrating childlike wonder through designs that are both elevated and artful, really encouraging us to discover joy again and experience design with a sense of curiosity and, of course, delight. So as you can see from our mood board here, it really captures that elevated, artful playfulness while embracing just a hint of retro nostalgia. We're definitely seeing that continue into the seasons ahead. And the reason we're seeing this shift happen in home is because in these times of rapid change, consumers are really reaching back to reclaim this sense of childlike joy and wonder as a source of comfort and grounding. And what this shift does is evoke those simple, more innocent times. Now, don't get me wrong, just because we're embracing this sense of playfulness and innocence, it does not mean that we're foregoing our luxurious aesthetics at all. I personally like to call this aesthetic taking fun seriously, because that's exactly what we're doing here. It's fun, yet still very elevated at the same time. Another thing to note is that we're also stepping away from an era that's been designed by sameness. You could thank our algorithms for constantly feeding us the same things and the same viral products time and time again, and it's resulted in homes that feel and look exactly the same. So consumers are really looking to reclaim this sense of individuality and personality within their spaces. And you'll see that across all 4 of our themes today. That's definitely a very important thing to note this season. So let's watch a quick video to really help us visualize even further what this aesthetic is all about. All right, so now moving on to everyone's favorite topic, which is color. And we're definitely entering a time where we are exploring a lot of color within the home. This is definitely our most colorful season that we've seen in quite some time, and I think it's super fun. So this color palette that you see here is a sensory explosion. It's sizzling, it's fiery, and deeply evocative. So imagine a range of these beautiful savory brights, each shade infused with the essence of taste and flavor, creating an irresistible pull towards indulgence. It really invites us to dive into a visual feast that celebrates self-expression and creativity. So these colors aren't just seen, they're truly felt within the home. And each hue pulses with vibrancy, transforming spaces into these bold, expressive environments. So now let's explore how this shift is driving newness from a materials and surfaces perspective. So today's upholstery design is all about embracing a playful, diverse, and imaginative aesthetic. Fabrics and finishes are brimming with these unexpected details, joyful textures, and vibrant colors, bringing a fresh sense of youthfulness into everyday spaces. So manufacturers are injecting whimsy into their materials. Think textured weaves and these bold piping details and dynamic patterns that help to transform upholstery into statements. And it's this new era of design that values functionality, but is serious about having fun, adding warmth, comfort, and delight to the places that we gather. And in line with this playful sentiment, furniture construction is also evolving to embrace this soft feel, these puffy forms, these retro-inspired shapes, and even these childlike constructions that all evoke that same sense of wonder. Think voluminous cushions, rounded edges, and exaggerated proportions that help to invite touch and, more importantly, interaction. The result is furniture that feels accessible, it feels inviting, and it almost feels toy-like in a way, really looking to pieces that bring a playful energy into the home while still delivering on your comfort and your quality. So looking deeper into materials, imaginative approaches to material design and construction really encourages us to look at the world with a much needed brightness and levity. From vibrantly tinted woods and sculpted glass to chunky corduroy, assortments aim to provide both visual impact and tactile practicality. So Widewell corduroy is actually making a major comeback in upholstery, bringing a rich textured look that leans heavily into that retro nostalgia. Its deep plush ribs add a tactile warmth and a cozy vintage charm to furniture pieces, making it the perfect material for creating inviting spaces with that hint of mid-century flair. It's also being done in really unexpected colorways, which is fun, and it also helps to add to its visual appeal. Taking a look at our surfaces, finishes and techniques are powerful considerations for sensorial stimulation across interiors, emerging as an extraordinary guide to wonder and expression. Multicolored, gummy, plush, fuzzy, or slick integrations reveal how color and texture can offer a profound impact on happiness, no matter the space. So creative experimentation really takes shape in the form of these toy-inspired resins, these textured metals, and these one-of-a-kind dye effects. Equally as diverse, waste can also be put into imaginative use with irregular patchworking, joinery, and repairing for an added tactile boost full of personality. So jumping to patterns and graphics, let's explore how this shift is driving newness in that arena. To set the tone here are our 4 main considerations for this story. First of all, we are designing to delight the inner child. So it's really important to implement an illustrative and imperfect approach to patterns and graphics here. Secondly, we're enhancing classic prints with super saturated hues and macro scaling to, again, excite the senses. And thirdly, another way to incorporate that sensory approach is to imitate reactive surfaces with speckles, contours, and gradients. And lastly, we are relaxing some of our more rigid lines, so think your stripes and your plaids, to really take on a more fluid artistic approach. And we'll explore all of that in the coming pages. So here we have tingle dyes, and that's those speckled dyes I just spoke to. This is the perfect example of those reactive surfaces. And this is essentially a maximalist take on your dots and your terrazzo, and it takes on a bit of a splattered artistic feel. And you can experiment with the density and sizing of your markings for differing effects. Or for a more subdued approach, you could explore tonality by pairing similar hues with varying lightness levels, like a crisp navy and a cobalt blue, for example. Next up, we have these tactile lines, and this is a perfect example of how we're relaxing some of those stripes and checks. This carefree stripe trades those clean contours and crisp borders for a handmade charm and sensory surfaces. You can intensify the dimensional aspect of this print with chunky knits or shearling, or capture every brushstroke in cotton or linen blends. Next, these curious contours are another way in which we can interpret that relaxed approach to line work. What is so refreshing about this print in particular is how it's fused the organic with the digital here. We're seeing a lot more digital manipulation come through, and these contours allow for a distorted, almost psychedelic sensibility to come through. You could heighten the dynamic intensity of this print with materials such as velvet or shearling. Metallic threads with a sheen also add more texture and depth to this type of print. Here we have these charged chroma prints. And we've been seeing these dimensional dye effects for a couple of seasons now, but this is a really great update to that type of print. It's fluid in feel, and it's suited to some more of your transparent materials, such as your mesh, your chiffon, and your silks. You can also experiment with layering and opacity, which is really the best way to achieve a more naturalistic variation within this print. And that concludes delight. Let's move on to repose. So we're actually going in a completely different direction here. Now, repose invites a renewal of the mind through thoughtful curation. Imagine stepping into a space that harmonizes both form and function, where whimsical touches bring depth and personal significance to your essentialist aesthetics. So this is without a doubt where we're seeing minimalism going for the next few seasons. And if you're actually here for last season's presentation, this is an evolution of our story equilibrium. So cold sterility transforms into warmth, and the everyday becomes artfully purposeful, without sacrificing practicality. So in this setting, objects are crafted to endure, each with distinctive details that continually catch the eye and invite admiration. So as you can see from the mood board here, this is anything but boring, and that is truly key. Due to the current economic climate, consumers are looking to make more meaningful design choices that really promote product longevity and encourage cross-seasonal styling. This is something that we have been talking about endlessly, and many consumers are having to really tighten their spending habits, which in turn has led to an increased interest in elevating the essentials. And to do this, they're injecting elements of whimsy and personalization into their basic needs, just for that added dose of dopamine. And this is where some of those same sentiments of delight come through. These happy, humorous, and lighthearted interiors are definitely taking over the design industry, whether in a maximalist way, like you saw with Delight, or in a minimalist way, as we're seeing here. So let's take a look at the video. All right, moving on to color. So for color, it's all about the subtle nuances here. The materials, the textures, the proportions are also thoughtfully curated to bring life to these minimalist aesthetics. So color choice is incredibly important here. We're looking at seasonless core colors that really stand the test of time, and they're very much permeating the home industry, really thanks to their reliability and their cross-functionality. So consumers are definitely gravitating towards these investment-worthy colors, such as deep chocolate brown, sophisticated sage, puddle, which really sits between this gray and a beige, colors that embody stability and a timeless versatility align with consumers' appetite for these enduring hues. Which is why we are seeing a transformative perspective on neutrals return. And neutrals really have the ability to tell a story. It's just all about selecting the appropriate ones. And they're also met with some really great pops of color throughout, which is really bringing life to this palette. Now that we've set the foundation to this shift, let's explore the materials and surfaces that are driving newness here. So as the need for slowness and wellness continues, upholstery and material design are embracing a more intentional and, like I said, an essentialist approach, valuing comfort, quality, and timeless value above all. This movement towards minimalism strips design down to its core, essentially focusing on the purity of form and function to create pieces that foster a sense of calm and grounding within the home. Now, by distilling design down to its essentials, each detail is considered with purpose, highlighting craftsmanship and offering an intimate experience of both material and form. The result is a celebration of simplicity that radiates luxury through thoughtful touches, really allowing consumers to connect deeply with their surroundings and appreciate the mindful impact of each element. And this essentialist approach makes every piece feel purposeful, reinforcing a narrative of wellness and lasting value. Looking at some of the material callouts, consumers are increasingly drawn to sustainable fiber choices for soft goods and upholstery. And this commitment to sustainability goes hand in hand with a wellness-driven approach, where soft goods are developed with skincare ingredients, they're bought with gentle and healthy materials that are safe for everyday use. So we're looking at things like lightweight marbles and refined woods to really help further elevate these upholstery textiles, offering a fresh, airy sophistication that pairs beautifully with these eco-conscious fabrications. Together, all of these elements create a harmonious balance of style, sustainability, and wellness, really appealing to consumers seeking both aesthetic appeal and mindful living within their homes. Moving on to our surfaces. Surfaces and finishes are also evolving with that gentle, thoughtful touch, offering new dimensions of tactility and aesthetic nuance. So upholstery surfaces now embrace plush, sculpted qualities, enhancing comfort and creating an inviting softness that feels very lived in. We're also seeing pleated and folded sheers that add that sense of fluidity and bring in that airy, dynamic sense of movement to interiors. For hard goods really lean into some more bold design choices that help to balance the softness of the textiles and the upholstery fabrications with these more structured elements. So we're looking at striking wood contrast, polished metals, and color blocking here, really to help create moments of intrigue. And this layered approach really allows materials to convey both warmth and sophistication. Taking a look at our patterns and graphics. So for our key considerations, texture play is key, whether it be with embossing, embroidery, marbling, or embellishing. Also updating core prints such as stripes and plaids by warping or skewing them, or through the intensity of color is also critical here. And with anything, it's important to really have a balance between the boldness of color and warping and kind of dialing it down with prints that offer a soft tonal colorway or an uncomplicated fabrication to really help set the tone for that balance between play and essentialist aesthetics. So first up, we have these, what we're calling vivid variegation. And this is essentially your update to color blocking. You could have a lot of fun with this one, as you could see through some of these fabrications here. Melding fabrics such as leather and corduroy together is a really interesting way in which you can introduce more color variations for that maximal impact. A micro-scaled application is also fun here, as showcased on this, this print in the middle here. And this would also be a great way to include some of your upcycled or repurposed materials, because you could utilize a lot of those fabric scraps and things that would otherwise go to waste. Here we have Curious Core, which is a personal favorite of mine. And I spoke to this earlier, but classic prints such as your stripes and your plaids are being warped and skewed for maximum sensorial appeal. And tactility and material choice is truly of utmost importance here. So leveraging textured or even imperfect surfaces adds to that artistic feel of this print. You could also work with a pieced or layered construction here for additional intrigue as well. So here we have Whispered Paths, and this one is one that definitely celebrates a less is more approach to this aesthetic. These muted tonal prints really lend themselves particularly well to dimensional materials such as wool, leather, or even some thick canvases. And I would definitely recommend opting for your neutral use here to really lean into those sentiments of product longevity. And lastly, for repose, we have freedom lines, which are these really beautiful, meditative, swirling stripes, if you will. And this one takes inspiration from nature, really adding an organic quality to this aesthetic, which is nice. And I would also recommend keeping the colors neutral here and very much tonal to really highlight the imperfect lines a lot better. All right, so next up we have merit, and this is where your traditional aesthetics meet your glamorous aesthetics. So merit invites a deep appreciation for the artistry behind carefully crafted objects, aiming to turn everyday moments into these sensory indulgences. In a nod to classical styling, dark woods and diffused lighting help to create a grounding atmosphere within the space, balancing that sophistication with these elements of comfort. And there's a sense of modern day Baroque grandeur here. And it's really a shift away from the purely functional into something unabashedly decadent. It's really where beauty and utility intertwine in some very new and fun ways. And decadence is found throughout all of the details here, in textures that invite touch, in cool metallic accents, in these really beautiful optical patterns and abstracted forms, all of which really challenge perception and play with light so beautifully. So each piece has an intentionality that speaks to celebration of craftsmanship here. And overall, merit embraces that idea that life's everyday rituals deserve that touch of elegance, really transforming the mundane into these really beautiful moments of opulence. And the reason being is that in today's climate of economic uncertainty, consumers are increasingly turning to these small, budget-friendly luxuries, really as a means to add pleasure to their daily routines. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, where people are definitely tightening their spending habits, but they still want to indulge in their everyday lives and really celebrate these mundane moments a little bit more. So they're embracing attainable indulgences that elevate the everyday, whether it's a beautifully crafted candle or a set of textured glassware or a plush throw pillow that brings a little bit of luxury into the home. It's all about those little details that just bring joy and luxury into play for your daily routines. And this shift definitely redefines what we think when we think luxury. It's less about that grandeur and that maximalist approach and more about moments of personal delight and comfort. And what we call these little luxuries really help to offer accessible ways to nurture oneself. So there's a bit of wellness carried throughout this story as well. And it helps to spark joy and provide a mental escape from the demands of everyday life. Another thing to note here is that the heritage revival is a key influence as well, as consumers increasingly seek to infuse their spaces with meaningful elements that reflect cultural resonance and a timeless appeal. So classic shapes are being reimagined with these bold colors, these intricate embellishments, and these somewhat unexpected forms throughout, just adding that touch of surprise to your classic aesthetics. And these updated classics really bring depth to your interior spaces. And it also mixes nostalgia with this modern glamour. So this trend really emphasizes the desire for decor that feels both familiar and fresh, another key theme that we've been seeing throughout this season. We're looking for pieces that make a statement, yet remain versatile within the home. It's really an important balance that we're seeking. And through these thoughtfully curated touches, consumers find way to bridge past and present, blending style with sentiment in their home environments. So let's take a look at the video. All right, moving on to color. So as you can see here, this palette is comprised of decadent darks and these beautiful enlivened midtones, really bringing a luxurious, nostalgic sensibility to modern interiors and echoing the opulent comforts of the past while appealing to that contemporary consumer. So at its heart is this opulent green, which is at the top. It's a briny, decadent hue that exudes a mysterious allure, setting a rich foundation for any space. Complementing this are the season's core shades of indulgent brown tones. They're earthy yet refined, really grounding the palette with warmth and familiarity. Then we have Honey Glaze, which is one of my personal favorites, and this lifts the palette with its golden warmth, or offering an inviting, luxurious touch to the overall mood as well. And then we have our mulberry wine and our crushed cherry to help bring in those deep, seductive notes towards the bottom here. And I'm sure we could all agree that red is having a moment, especially within fashion, and we're definitely going to see it continue well into fall, winter 25-26 from a home perspective, especially with these darker burgundy hues. Now let's take a look at materials and surfaces. So throughout history, artisans have created these enduring and desirable objects, asserting their mastery into the fibers, the constructions, and the finishes that we all treasure for generations. So these new craft movements are returning back to this way of thinking and making a case for the richness of superior craftsmanship and timeless appeal. So defined by decadence, vibrancy, and skill, craft is reinvigorated as this rich celebration of what it means to design with passion in a world that is, I guess, obsessed with commodifying artistry. So we're looking at indulgent textures, polished finishes, and a sense of classical quirk when it comes to materials and finishes. We want our pieces to be layered with opulence, yet equally functional. Again, I'm gonna sound like a broken record here. This season, there's this fascination with these rich tactile materials. Think your velvets, your marbles with dramatic veining, and your glossy lacquered woods, all of which invite touch while exuding sophistication. Returning to the indulgent and the artisanal, craft has undergone a huge resurgence in recent times, and new material assortments are investing in some more luxurious and dynamic forms. So laced with extravagant fibers, tactile constructions, and weighted handles, The richer and more distinctive the outcomes are, the better here. Velvets and cashmere fabrics showcase supple, weighted constructions, while cast glass and marble interiors adopt those more intricate colorations. And from a more conscious standpoint, platforms like Nonasource foster brand commitment to creative reuse by sourcing wasted high-end materials. Looking at our surfaces, mastering handiwork in profound or even subtle ways, novel surfaces highlight the best modern craftsmanship has to offer. We're looking at a lot of these combined effects here. So think shine with embroidery or distressing with brushed effects, both of which evoke this sense of luxury and this layered sentiment here. As does embossing and waxing for trims or soft good materials. Classic interior applications like glass brick inlays or paneled wall coverings are also coming through heavily here, working to really combine these bold aesthetics and hyper-functional soundproofing into the approach. And finally, we're seeing antique glass mirrors and burl woods come through, and they could be recast into these new usages worth treasuring within the home. Now we're moving on to patterns and graphics. So looking at our key considerations, it's really important to explore the dichotomy of texture and color throughout this entire season. So consider mixing materials and finishes to express your personality within your space. Also explore the relationship between surface finishes and print. That's another key thing to note here. And you can elevate your surface design with these burnished, marbled, or embellished accents. And then drawing on mid-century inspiration also helps to achieve this sense of classic sophistication. And lastly, we're embracing a less is more approach with these dialed down or somewhat minimalistic prints throughout this season. So taking a look at some of those prints, here we have our first one, which is called Magnetic Mirage. And these lustrous and regal trompe l'oeil prints exude traditional decadence as showcased in fur and jacquard applications. Also placing this print on textured materials to intensify the grandeur and the impact is a really great way to go about utilizing this print. And for a more traditional or sophisticated take, subdue the saturation and the color for tonal and indulgent shades. I also like the idea of playing with matte and shine finishes here. Next up is what we are calling mixed feelings. And these cleanly constructed shapes are sewn together in these disharmonious ways. And it's really this clashing and fusion of color, texture, and print here. And I would consider the use of asymmetry here as it really creates that more dynamic composition and enhances that handmade feel overall. Here we have Graphic Divide, which is a fantastic update to all of the checkerboard prints that we've been seeing for a few seasons now. And the simplistic nature of these prints provides joyful opportunity to dial up the volume through textural elements and dynamic finishes, from your smooth, slick leathers to your plush, woolly fibers. I would also consider macro scale dimensions here to really intensify that contrast. Lastly, we have Soulful Symmetry, which offers a sophisticated and timeless update to your geometric prints. You could go for small, compact repeats here for that refined feel, or you could opt for your larger scales for more of that graphic appeal. All right, so last but certainly not least is my personal favorite of the season, which is Cultivate. Cultivate pays homage to the rich heritage of handcrafted goods, celebrating the skill and artistry of the artisans who create them. So this aesthetic draws deeply from folkloric construction techniques that incorporate natural materials, creating pieces that carry stories of ancient cultures into our modern homes. Each item truly becomes a vessel of history here, and it's meant to be passed down and reinterpreted by generations to come. And what this does is really provide authenticity throughout this entire shift. That is definitely a key word here. And while the craftsmanship is rooted in tradition, there's an infusion of modernity through clean lines and abstracted forms, allowing these heritage-inspired pieces to feel timeless yet very fresh. And at the heart of this trend is a conscious shift towards a respect for both the people and the planet. So we're definitely responding to consumer disillusionment of fast fashion and overconsumption here in the face of this current humanitarian crisis. So there's a growing desire for meaningful products that honor both the maker and the materials. We're embracing local resources a lot more than ever before. And we're working in harmony with nature's natural cycles. So by turning to indigenous wisdom, consumers and creators alike are making a lot more thoughtful choices that help to prioritize sustainability and environmental harmony. So we're looking again at those natural fibers, those locally sourced dyes, both of which free from harmful chemicals, to add that, and what they do is help to add that organic feel overall to the product, because you're getting naturally occurring color variations and organic textures that come into play here. So overall, we're really looking to the earth and the artisan as inspiration here. All right, so taking a look at color. So like I said, these hues emerge from nature. So we're really looking at organic colors. We're looking at locally sourced dyes, things along those lines, to help pay homage to earth positive practices and natural pigments. So the hues come together as a collection of these really beautiful, uplifting and optimistic shades here. And these artisanal mid-tone colors really come alive, celebrating a rich tapestry of colors, again, found in nature. So crisp navy and natural teal wash over this shift with a gritty coastal charm, while olive terrain and opulent green firmly roots this shift with this earthy allure. Then we have shades like this beautiful yellow, which we're calling sun cloud, and it emerges as a really optimistic anchor color throughout this season. So let's dive into the materials and surfaces here. So to give an overview, mindful design reimagines making as an act of honoring the living world, from raw natural resources to layered creations filled with depth and character. Drawing on ancestral wisdom and heritage from both near and far, each texture, each detail, the construction, all weave together as a meaningful story to be told. And these updated materials embody deep respect and sensitivity for these time-honored crafts that really lie at the heart of Indigenous traditions, really recasting them as a celebration of kinship and legacy. So again, embracing and affirming our stewardship towards natural resources, materials really revert back to their roots for premium performance offerings. From responsibly sourced wool fibers to your vegetable tanned leathers, here we craft a renewed and regenerative take on sustainable design. Elsewhere, design captures the beauty of lush landscapes with roughly sculpted woods, precious metals, and engineered upholstery weaves that twist and form to mimic the varying complexities of the ecology, communities, and legacies that surround us. A new assortment of diverse and enriched surfaces are also emerging here that really help to solidify that honor towards both the past and the present. Longstanding botanic or clay-based dye techniques are recast for contemporary pottery and artistic wood inlays. Elsewhere for hard goods and are these deep and very heavily veined treasures. So we're looking at Delato, Nero, and Calcutta marble varieties here. And finally, material mastery really lies in the minuscule details here, from your slow crafted ties to imperfect stitches and culturally informed embroideries for your soft goods and your decorative items. So let's move on to our last segment here, which is patterns and graphics. So just highlighting again our key considerations. Artisanal dye effects and intricate textures are both key considerations for this story. It's also important to understand the history and techniques of culturally coded heritage prints. So a great way to do this would be to collaborate or highlight global artisans to really incorporate culturally informed patterns into your assortments. And lastly, modernizing these time-honored patterns and graphics is key to really appeal to your modern-day consumer. So here we have these heritage rewritten prints. So these are your new interpretations of your trusted plaid or your checkerboard print. And they're being pieced and patchworked together to really create that handcrafted feel. And this is actually a great way to upcycle. So consider repurposing and reusing wasted cutoffs or dead stock materials here, which are patched into these really beautiful new outcomes. And definitely don't be afraid to layer your color and explore some non-traditional pairings. It could really result in something unique and beautiful. And lastly, the more undone, the better here. So colors should kind of appear as though they're cobbled together in a way. Next up, these calculated angles and spontaneous fluidity come together to create a pattern of structure and flow with what we're calling refined rudiment. So we've actually been particularly inspired by Raven's-tail weaving, which is a traditional form of weaving that is practiced by Indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest coast. And this distinctive style includes sharp geometric lines and minimal color variation. So a modernized interpretation could be crafted by incorporating a more digital design, visual, or indulging in a metallic thread or embellishment here. So I definitely encourage all of you to research some indigenous weaving techniques and collaborate with those that retain that tradition today. Again, that would really help to solidify authenticity here. So storytelling is another big thing that is gaining so much momentum. So I know it might be intimidating to incorporate these types of graphics onto upholstery, but these are your conversational prints, and they are really resonating with today's consumer. They feel kind of as though they've been tattooed onto the fabric, which is really cool and really fun. And you can experiment with the print sizing. You could also experiment with the motifs that you're using. Really incorporating some of those folkloric motifs would be great here. And again, these icons should additionally sit in multiple directions within the print to help really resonate with that handcrafted, hand-drawn feel. So our last print of the day is Blooming Craft. And here we continue to delve into your artisanal techniques, really encompassing needlepoint, block print, carving, sun-bleached dyes, and handcrafted artistry to form these really beautiful ornamental floral prints. And these prints are beautifully imperfect, as you can see, and they evoke that sense of authenticity that I keep speaking to. So whether muddled, unfinished, or roughly stitched, these raw illustrations of flower petals help to reflect the artisan's guiding hand. So I would recommend softer color ways here, really nodding to that cross-seasonal approach that we've been highlighting throughout this entire season. All right, so that concludes all 4 of our fall winter 25-26 shifts. And if you haven't done so already, please be sure to check out our trend gallery at booth 538 around the corner. I'll actually be there in a little bit, so I'd love to walk you through some of the fabric selections that we chose for that gallery. But thank you so much for joining today. And I will be sticking around, like I said, to answer any questions or chat with you in regards to any of these shifts today. So thank you. So it's actually going to live on the website for Interwoven. Yeah, so the whole presentation will be there and